Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no obligation introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
Hello and welcome again to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson, and my special guest today is Kristian Thorpe. Kristian is the senior pastor at Arena Church in Ilkeston, near Derbyshire, and also in Mansfield, and the National Church Planting Coordinator for the Assemblies of God in the UK. Kristian, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Errol.
I know there's a lot more I could say about you, Kristian. And Kristian is a dear friend of mine, I should say, guys. I know you're going to be blessed by today's conversation. Kristian, first of all, tell us a bit about, I could share more about you in your biography and your story, but tell us where you've come from, your background. How did you end up here in Ilkeston in Derbyshire?
Yeah, well, first of all, very, very understated childhood. Very average at school, brought up in a Christian home, a faith home, and at the age of 18 went through banking, went into the banking system. That's where I was wanting to develop my career, and I guess the life transformational moment for me was when I went into another context, another country, saw great need there, something began to happen in my heart, where I wanted to go and make a difference, which resulted in me then taking a year out of the bank. And really that was, the rest is history in many ways. From there, went on to a church staff. I've also had a bit of a checkered history in terms of you've started businesses, sold businesses. So very, very varied in over the years.
So how did you know then that this was what God has called you to do? And let me add as well, like as much as we're in Ilkeston in Derbyshire here now, the main church site. Yeah. There are several other outreach. Tell us about some of the projects you're working at the moment as a church.
Yeah, well, first of all, we knew that as a church, because we're in Derbyshire, most of your listeners will have no idea probably where that is. And we're in a little town called Ilkeston, population of around 35,000 people, very working class. And when I came here, I knew that our vision, the vision that God had placed in my heart was we were going to need to do something more than just through the general offerings, tithes and offerings. So I knew we needed to set up businesses, we needed to set up enterprises that would really touch the community. So although we're in a community of about 35,000 people, we actually serve around 5,000 people per week around this area. And we do that through food banks, we've got a factory, a hub that we run where we feed people, where we clothe people, where we serve people. We work with about 35 different agencies. I have a one-on-one relationship with the chief exec of the council and the MP and the police, etc., etc. they've developed. We've also set up, you've visited some of the high street projects. One of the things that the Lord spoke to us about was making the community livable again. And many of our communities, the high street has been decimated. And so we decided to make a difference in that. And so we've created businesses, training opportunities in the high street. And when I first arrived here, we had one building. We now have 10.
Wow.
When I arrived here, they couldn't afford to pay me. We now have a staff of 30, and even tonight we have a volunteer dream team party. There'll be in excess of 200 staff who give significant amounts of time to the church and the different outreaches. So we really are a community-minded church that believes that actually we're called not just to sing songs of worship and just hear nice messages. We're actually called to go and make a difference and transform the community.
Wow. And this for me is one of the models of entrepreneurial leadership, ministry in action. I kid you not, guys, I spent a lot of time here in Ilkeston and with Kristian and the team, and it's so inspiring to see a church that is reaching out. You didn't mention the homes you've got for people who suffer from domestic abuse and things of that nature, the coffee shops and the stuff for offenders or people who are not in education or training and things of that nature. There's so much happening here outside of the four walls of the church, and I really want you guys to go and check out Arena Church in Ilkeston. If you're in the area, pay them a visit and go and just check out the church and what's happening there. Kristian, along your leadership journey, can you think of a time where maybe you were heading in one direction and something happened? Maybe a revelation or just an aha moment that caused you to go in a completely different direction. Can you tell us one of those kind of turning point stories that you've had along the way?
I can. I sold a business and we made a lot of money. And by the way, making money is not dirty, a dirty word or a dirty phrase. The Bible has a lot to say about resourcefulness and being shrewd, and as long as our hearts are right. Because the Bible says where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So it's important that we have our heart centered on Jesus. But we made some money and we invested it in a business that unfortunately didn't work. So it wasn't a revelation. What actually brought me in a different direction was failure. Most people don't ever want to talk about failure, but actually if you're going to do anything significant, you're going to have to go through the highs. I've had more highs than lows, but let me tell you, I've had some lows. But it's in the lows that I've got strong. It's in the lows that I've learned. So an aha moment for me was, we was at the crossroads, we thought this business was going to work, we invested a lot of money and time and energy. It didn't work. And it was at that point I knew that I needed to give completely all my time and energy to this thing called the church, with all its varied activities. Because before that I was really doing a bivocational journey. So I was half the time in the church and half the time running my own businesses. And for me that was that aha moment, but it was failure, not revelation.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So failure being a turning point. Along the way as well, what's been your biggest challenge in your leadership journey?
Again, for your listeners, it would be myself, learning to lead myself. So one of the things that I have learned, and even this year, the biggest leadership lesson that I have learned this year is to deal with distractions. Because distractions can certainly throw us off course. But the other thing about distractions is some of them are very dangerous. And these distractions can actually completely turn our life upside down, inside out. And so I think, a great leadership lesson for me has been to retain absolute focus. And I use this phrase, a laser-eyed focus. And there are some things that you can do to do that. Keep the vision ever before you. It's the Habakkuk, write it down, make it plain. Be clear on what you're doing, and be clear with your team that you're working with, what you're doing. And don't allow anything, no matter how good it is, to derail you. Because actually some distractions aren't dressed in failure. They can sometimes be dressed in look good. And actually, it's the Jim Collins, isn't it? We don't want the good, we want the great. And so this has been one of my biggest learning curves, I think, in leadership. And I said to you just before we came on air that this has been probably one of the most difficult years, and yet it's been probably one of the most exciting years that we've ever had. But I've had to learn to remove dangerous distractions and live with laser-eyed focus.
Wow. So we came up with these things called the 5 core abilities of highly effective leaders. From our interviews and our conversations with leaders from around the world, we recognized there were 5 things they all did really well. The first was being able to create and communicate a compelling vision. How do you go about communicating vision? What's your process for communicating vision to your church?
Because I'm a church pastor and a preacher communicator, I have the opportunity to stand before hundreds of people every single week. I take the opportunity every week to speak the vision, and I do that creatively. So there's never a Sunday that goes by that our people are not.
Tell us how you do that, because
okay, so our vision, if you don't mind, just for this, is to go and grow and to love and serve our world, and that's broken down into 4 elements. We want people to know God, find freedom, discover their purpose, and make a difference. And we actually incorporate those 4 elements in some part of my preach every single Sunday. It's not the same, or we do it in the offering, or we do it through the announcements. There is some way that we are communicating our vision. I think stories are very, very important. So the best way to communicate vision is through a story. So if you have a vision, for instance, that you want to take the broken and mend their lives, that could be a vision. Tell a story and then say, and this is our vision. This is what we want to do. If it's to build a great business that affects, the economy of the local, then get a story. There'll be a story that you've got, and then communicate that story. So that's one of the things that I do, and we try and do very well. And then, of course, using social media and all those kinds of things.
There's someone listening right now who's a pastor or a leader, and they're saying, I just haven't got the time or the skill or who's going to do all that for me? I can't do all that. Speak to them.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would say you can, and it goes back to focus on what you should be focused on and put away with all the other distractions. Often as pastors, and I know what it's like to start a church, be with 30, 40 people. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth or walked into a large church. I wanted to lead a large church, and I had to grow a large church. That's how we've done it. And so you've got to remove distractions. That's what you've got to do from your life, and live with a real clear sense of purpose. For me, I'm in a position where I only probably do 4 things. I do lots of things, but it's principally those 4 things. But I would say every pastor, even if you're the only person on your payroll staff or the only person who's there, this should be one of your main things. How do I communicate the vision to the people that I've got working with?
Brilliant.
You need to get your team around you. If you don't believe in team, you've got to do it through the team. Get your vision into the team. And the other thing I'd say about vision as well is you've got to collaborate. Get buy-in. I talk about the hands in the middle. Yeah, we're in for this. So whenever I'm presenting anything new, I'll usually have 70% of the vision, and then I get the rest of the team to add the 30%. So there's that real collaboration, and then there's buy-in.
Right.
Everybody's bought into this. Right. It's not Kristian's vision, it's our vision. We have developed this, and then we communicate the we, not ever mine. Wow. It's always ours.
Wow. That is so crucial, guys. I mean, some of us have to go back and listen to that again, because we see in so many situations where church leaders are the be all and end all. The buck stops with them for everything, and they don't engage with. They give the impression that they know everything, rather than appreciating that the collective intelligence of everybody else in my team or in my organization together combined is far greater than what I know. And so we need to hear what Kristian's saying here. It's about collaboration. It's about building, creating that vision together, prayerfully, of course, led by the Holy Spirit, but actually it's a collaborative process. The second ability is the ability to get the best out of the people you lead, whether they like you or not as well. How do you go about building teams? How do you go about, what's the process?
It's one of my passions. I'd have to ask my team to speak into this, probably on another episode, whether I'm good at it. I hope I am, because I love working with teams. And it goes back to what you've just said there. I know I am so flawed, and I am not great at everything. There are some things that I'm good at, skilled at, and there's other things that people are far better at than me. So what I do is I just bring them in. You've got to be secure in who you are. If you're going to build great teams, you've first of all got to know who you are in God, and you've got to know what God has called you to be. And then what you've got to do is you're going to say, okay, where are my weaknesses and how can I staff them? So when I arrived here 10 years ago, I knew I needed to bring in a teaching pastor. I'm principally very evangelistic, very a builder, entrepreneurial. I needed somebody who was really going to get in God's word and really teach and lay in the word. So I brought in the best teaching pastor we could fund and finance, and he is world class. Brought him in with confidence. I knew that people were going to love him, they were going to applaud him after Sunday, after his messages. They never applauded me, but I knew they were going to applaud him. But I was secure enough in who I was, and I said to him, will you come and bring what you can bring, and I will bring what I can bring, and we'll be secure in it. And in those 10 years we have never had a crossword. We've disagreed, we've never had a crossword. He's been truly remarkable. So I think you've got to be secure in who you are. You've then got to let them speak. I heard Craig Rochelle, a great American pastor, say this: you've got to get the empowering yes deep down into the organisation. So if you're going to build teams, you've got to let people be able to say yes. You've got to let them have freedom to be creative. You're not going to know everything. You're not going to be a know-it-all. And then the other thing is to build teams for me is I can't get away with that relational intelligence, being warm, loving the guys who you've got there, even loving their mess, even loving their mistakes. What a valuable lesson that I learned, sorry Errol, just on this, and I'll move on, is this thing that came to many years ago, is that we need to create a framework to fail. Everybody talks about a framework for success. I believe that we needed to create a framework where people in your team could fail, and actually they weren't going to get a kicking from the boss. Now, we're not after failure, but what we're doing is, because oftentimes,
safe, right?
it's a safe environment, and that's where they learn. Then it's having the constructive, okay, what went wrong there? What would you do differently? How can we change the outcome of it when you go again? But I never want to create an organisation, an environment where people are frightened to breathe, move, do something new, try something new, because, they're frightened. I think it's important that we create a healthy team dynamic, which is relational, warm, where people can go and do.
It's great. And I can testify that is the reality here at Arena Church. The third thing is about finance, and the third core ability, and the ability to create and manage wealth. How did you go about, or what's your process for generating income for the church?
Yeah, we knew we couldn't, as I started, fund the vision just through the tithes and offerings, because of where we are demographically, and we couldn't. That proved to be the case. I created a lot, and this will mess with a few pastors who are listening to this, or church leaders, because they'll cite, Jesus turned the tables, the money changers in the temple and whatever, and of course he did, but that was all about a heart thing. They were being unscrupulous with poor people and taking from them. Their hearts were not good. I knew we needed to use what we had effectively. So here's an example of it. Many of our churches have great church buildings that can often be open on a Sunday for a couple of hours, and they may have a prayer meeting one night a week, and then they may run a mother and toddler. What about the other time? You've got this great resource that people have financed, and it's open 12, 15 hours a week. And I decided that was never going to be the case here. So when we put this building up, I said, I made this bold declaration: I want the building open 7 days a week, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Lots of people didn't understand that. But what I was basically saying is I wanted this building to be used for the community, in the community, for the people, by the community. And also we wanted it to be a revenue stream. So we were one of the first churches to go down the conferencing route. So we now have many businesses, many charities, many organisations come through, and that finances this building.
Wow. That's amazing.
It finances this building. So we decided that we were going to use the skills that God had given us, the gifts that God had given us, the ability, the entrepreneurship, all our experiences, and we were going to use it positively. Listen to me. I'm not getting rich off this. I'm not trying to build a kingdom. I'm trying to affect the communities in which we live. And you can't do that if you've not got a resource. You can't.
Wow. The fourth ability is the ability around self-doubt, the ability to defy self-doubt and still lead with confidence. How did you, like the imposter syndrome that we talk about, where you're in an environment and we've all experienced it. How have you defied that self-doubt and still been able to lead with confidence along your journey?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is some of those, is it the nagging voices that can be in your head that you haven't got it, what it takes, and I have to deal with those every single day. So I may hopefully come across confident because I think I am a happy, confident person, but I have to deal with this every single day, and this does go back to a walk with Jesus. Because actually, without Jesus in my life, one of my favourite verses talks about his power. He's able to do immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And so for me, it's leaning into God, it's leaning into the Son, it's leaning into the Holy Spirit. And as I lean into that, as I deepen in that, actually it fills me with confidence. It just does, because I know who I am. I know what God has called me to be. I'm not pretending or trying to be anybody other than myself. And what it also does, it silences those self-doubts, because we all have them. If people are thinking, it's all going to be perfect, and it's all, you don't. I have them all the time.
It's good,
but I'm not going to live with them.
It's good, man. And the last one is about productivity, the ability to get things done, the key things done, and then eliminate or delegate the rest. You talked about knowing your strengths, right, and not building a team. Do you have like an app or a process that you use that helps you become more effective or more productive, rather?
I read a lot. I can't say I've got an app but I read an awful lot of I read widely, so both Christian and non-Christian leadership management resources that help me. I think one of the best pieces of advice, two pieces of advice. One was, you need to know your gifts, and you need to know them what order they are. So for me, I identified that first of all I'm a leader, and I realized that because of my leadership, I can be in a leadership context and I can be teaching for 4 hours and I'm energized. I love it. It doesn't take much from me, because that's what I am principally. Secondly, I'm an evangelist. I love to connect with people who are far away from God. The third one, interestingly, is a preacher. Preaching takes an awful lot out of me. It diminishes me, and so that has been helpful for me to know what I should be doing and what energizes and what depletes me. The second thing that that somebody said to me was, you also then need to understand what you should be doing, what your role is. So for me, I've identified that down to 4 things that I need to be doing, and everything else I eliminate. So it's not delegation, it's not just getting it off my desk. You've got to make sure that is it delegation or is it abdication, I often say. And most leaders want to abdicate. I never want to abdicate, but I do want to delegate. And I need to delegate to people who can do this far better than me. So I think it goes back to knowing your gifts, and then knowing what you should be doing, and focus on those things. It goes back to the laser-eyed focus. And that's been a real journey for me this year, Errol.
Brilliant. Cool. And quick fire round now. Yeah. So John Maxwell said that the secret to your success is hidden in your daily routine.
Okay.
Typically speaking, what does the first 90 minutes of your day look like?
I need a cup of coffee. I need a coffee. Yeah. It would be coffee. It would be a good morning, Lord. It's the first thing that Lord, I need you in this day. The usual things, the shower. I tend to leave exercise till later on in the day interestingly, just how I work. Spending some time with him, spending some time with my wife, because I want to say that if you've got a healthy marriage and a healthy family, you'll have a healthy life. So that's a priority to me, not just with Jesus, but with Caroline and also with the children. So that would be what my 90 days consists of.
90 minutes, yeah. So,
Yeah, sorry,
so what other habits have contributed towards your success?
Most definitely, I've already alluded to it, reading.
Okay.
So I read widely, and I read regularly. So I think that's an important thing. So I always want to learn. I also listen widely and listen. So this is a classic for me, a podcast. Podcasts are the most wonderful things. You just can flick them on and listen to them.
Yeah.
They're just wonderful things. I think that has contributed and has become a habit, listening, reading. Exercise is always a constant challenge for me, but I understand the necessity to exercise. Yeah, they're just some of the things that are...
Brilliant. All right. And then what's your biggest weakness as a leader?
If I roll the clock back 5 years ago, for those who are listening, they'll be thinking, really? But it wasn't that I listened well. For many years I didn't listen. I was hearing but wasn't listening. And so I've took those verses to heart, that we need to be slow to speak and quick to listen.
And what's your biggest strength?
I think my biggest strength has been genuinely wanting to involve others and allowing others to get praise and credit. I love it when people are doing well.
And who are 3 of your top mentors in your journey so far?
There's a man by the name of David Sherman who
Okay.
led a great church for many years over in the Nottingham area, our largest Assemblies of God church for years. He has been an incredible source of challenge and inspiration to me, and he's been a real father to me, a spiritual father to me. And then from a distance, if I could just use one other, possibly, I've met him once, but a man by the name of Pastor Bill Hybels, who's very different to me, not from a Pentecostal stream, but yet his leadership and his heart for the lost and his love for the church has massively impacted me. Yeah.
And so what's the best piece of advice you've gotten from both David Sherman and Bill Hybels?
David Sherman would be, do the right thing, even if everybody is doing the wrong thing. So even if they're doing the wrong thing against you, you still do the right thing. So it's talking about taking the higher ground, not trying to be higher than, but just taking the higher ground. That's probably one of the best pieces of advice that I've heard from David. And also honouring those who are older than you. So he laid that into me, and I've sought to do that throughout my life. Bill Hybels, I guess through much of his teaching, there's lots of things that come to mind. Identifying leaders. One of his greatest phrases is the local church is the hope of the world, and I suppose that's probably, that mantra has really impacted me. I have a deep love for the local church, even with all its imperfections. I love the church, and I think he's probably laid a deep love for God's church in my heart that has affected my life and my ministry so far.
And is there a book or resource you'd recommend for a leader or entrepreneur that's listening right now?
You've mentioned anything to do with John Maxwell. I read Maxwell. I think I've read most of his material that's there. He's up and coming. I've recently been impacted by a guy called Pastor Chris Hodges, who has read and wrote a number of books. We've been talking about Zig Ziglar. Read his books. Ken Blanchard. There's lots of different people who have impacted me on different levels. Like I said, I read widely, both non-Christian and Christian, and also widely in the Christian church as well, from some Catholic literature to some more Pentecostal literature. So even if I don't agree with it, it challenges me, it stretches me.
It's great. And what's the one thing we're almost done now. What's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
You know what? I believe we have the greatest opportunity across the world, but I don't live in the. I'm in the world, but I live in the United Kingdom, and there are many challenges in this country at the moment. But I tell you what, I think we have the greatest opportunity to spread and to take the good news into this world. I believe I spend lots of time with unchurched people. Their hearts are open, their minds are engaged. And I think we have a great opportunity to take ground in Jesus' name, genuinely. And not just through the church, but I also think I want to add fuel. I'm fired up about firing up politicians, Christian business people, sports people, affecting the arts, media. I have a huge passion, wherever you are, for you to go and make a difference in the world. So I'm hugely fired up by those things at the moment.
Awesome. And someone listening right now is thinking, how do I get in touch with this guy? How do I reach him? Do you have a website or any social media handles that we can...
I have. Yeah, so you can go to www.arenachurch.co.uk. You can also follow us on Instagram at Arena Church. Personally, Kristian Thorpe on Twitter, although I don't use it as a lot, really. But if you contact the church, that would be the best way to get hold of me. Brilliant. I'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Kristian, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Errol, and you are doing a terrific job. You're a great man, and God bless you in all that you do.
Thank you. Guys, go and check out Arena Church and find out more information about Kristian Thorpe, Pastor Kristian Thorpe, and the amazing work they're doing here at Arena. God bless you. Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol@errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around a leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away or get you booked in. It's Errol@errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes, give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.